I wanted to fill you in on a crazy but real story on how I lost well over $50,000 during my time in Vietnam. This story dates back to the year of 2014, so it's been a long time. And the reason why I wanted to share this story with you is so that you can avoid making the same mistakes that I made. So yeah, it was 2014. I remember the time perfectly well right now. It was a time when I just moved out of Kuala Lumpur. I was living in Petaling Jaya, Tropicana to be exact, and I was there for some time, and we had a fantastic project. We were doing workshops, we were doing a lot with internet marketing, a lot of meetups, and we were doing coaching and consulting, and it was a really prosperous time for us. And the person who I was with back then was from Vietnam, and we lived in Kuala Lumpur. And it was a time for us when we decided it was time to move on to a different place. After having lived in Kuala Lumpur for so long and, having lived in an apartment, it was time for us to move to a different place, get a different experience out of life. So what we did was we moved to Ho Chi Minh City, and there is an area in Ho Chi Minh City called Thu My Hang. It's located in District 7. It's one of the more popular districts, one of the more popular areas among digital nomads, among expats, pretty much all foreigners that live in Ho Chi Minh City, because you have a lot of conveniences nearby. You have restaurants, you have so much going on there. You have shopping malls, you have Christian Mall, you have so much going on there that it's just one of the better areas to live in Ho Chi Minh City. And for us, it was like, yeah, we wanted a house because we were sick and tired of living in an apartment, and we thought, it's time for us to find a home, to find a house. And so we were looking at a couple of houses for rent, and we found this amazing place. It was a 3-story house, and it was huge. It had 6 bedrooms, and it had a rooftop pool. So that was really the creme de la creme for me personally, because I always wanted to have a house with a rooftop pool. Is there anything better like that? And I don't think so. It's really the real lifestyle, the real digital lifestyle, the real internet lifestyle that I always wanted to live. So after having had so much success in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, it was time to move to Vietnam and live that big internet marketing lifestyle. So we got this place, paid 4 figures a month in rent. Our landlady, she decided to give us her housekeeper as well, because as you can imagine, a big place like this takes a lot of maintenance. It had a garden, and the pool needs to be cleaned at least once a week, better twice a week. You got to change the water, you got to put in the chemicals, right? So it does take a lot of time to keep the place maintained. And that's exactly why we got the housekeeper, and we also had a maid, that cleaned up 3 times a week. So from that point of view, it was really a great life that we were living back then. We had 2 people working for us, taking care of the household, something that you would do yourself in the West. But in Southeast Asia, since, the hourly rates of people is so low, you can afford to outsource this kind of work, so you can focus on the real stake, which is your business. So we moved in, and on the first floor, like I told you, the house has 6 bedrooms, and on the first floor there was a total of 3 bedrooms. And I decided, one of these bedrooms we're going to turn it into an office. We put in like 3 office desks, one office desk, another one, and then we had about 6 laptops on there, 5 or 6 laptops, and then we also had a PC because I was working with a PC, and then with the laptop, each laptop was connected to another monitor, so you can split screens. You're just being a lot more productive when you're working like this. Now you may ask, why 6 laptops? Why do you need so many laptops? Well, it's pretty simple. It wasn't just me working there. The person I was with back then also worked with me on my business, for our business together. So, we needed more horsepower, and, 1 laptop is fine, but, sometimes we were running like software, and, it would take up a lot of resources. Of course, we also used remote desktops, but there's really only so much, work like force you can put on a laptop. And plus, if you're working on different projects, like we were doing many different things to make money. We were doing CPA marketing, which is a form of affiliate marketing. And then I was also doing coaching. I had group coaching calls, I had Skype. We had a lot of different things. We were doing forum marketing. We had so much going on. And the person I was with, she was helping us with the clients, she was handling the client side of things, So she was being like a customer rep, a customer representative, and she was taking care of all of this, right? And then she was also running campaigns on another laptop, right? So we had really this crazy setup, that really led to a whole lot of productivity. It was just fantastic. So we had this routine, in the morning, we worked late because our campaigns were focused on US time, meaning we had to work until the early morning hours, and that's what we did. So we woke up usually a little bit later, because if you work until like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, because the offers that we were running, they were really converting well until about mid to late afternoon Eastern Standard Time. And that's exactly what we did, which was really, really cool. And then in the morning, you just wake up, and if you worked so much, you don't really have a lot of power left to make a good breakfast or to spend time cooking if you have to work again just a few hours later. So what we typically did was we just went out to eat, we jumped on our bike, we went out to eat, had a good time, just ate, whatever we had, like fish cake soup, pho noodle soup, whatever. We went out to eat, and then we went to buy food. Once we were done with all of that, we just came back and we hustled again. There was a little bit of time between to take care of the dogs, to just walk them outside or to just let them out in the garden, observe them. So it was a really good routine, and that really worked well until one morning that we went out, just exactly the same. Everything was exactly the same. And we went out and we were like, we're going to have breakfast, we're going to get some groceries, and we were out for maybe like 60 to 75 minutes at most, I would say. And then when we got back, we opened up the gate. So there was a gate right before you get into the house, and then there was the garden, and then there was the house door. So we opened up the gate, locked it, it was a lock, put the lock on, walked through the garden to get to the house, and then I opened up, and then I already heard the dogs barking, which was a little bit odd back then because typically they weren't barking, and opened it up, and the dogs were just running around like crazy in the house. And then my dog Timmy, he was not there when I opened up the door, which was also weird because typically he was there waiting for us to get back, to greet us. That was his primary task, but he wasn't. He was upstairs and he barked upstairs. I was like, what's going on? Why isn't Timmy here? And then it was even weirder because we walked in, we closed the door, and he was still up there barking. He still didn't come. I called him, Timmy, come down, Timmy, come on. And he didn't come. And then I was like, that's weird. And then when we walked in, something was off. Something didn't feel right. And then I walked up and I saw him barking outside the office door. The door to the office was closed, and I tried to open it. It was locked. That was kind of weird. Then I asked the person I was with back then, did we lock the office door? Because I can't remember locking it. And she said, no, we didn't lock it. And I'm like, why is it unclosed? Doesn't make any sense. Tried opening it, really like crazy. It's like, because you don't know what's going on. You're like in the moment, it didn't open up. What's going on? And then, there was another bedroom right next to it. It was possible to access the office through the bedroom. So that's what I was going to do, because there was a balcony and you could walk on the balcony to get to the other office door. And that's what I tried. And when I walked into the bedroom, you can see outside, you see the backside of the house. And I saw a guy on the balcony who carried out a bunch of laptops, which were of course my laptops. And then before I could act, he already jumped on the house and he left our house. We fell victim to home invasion. It was really, really bad because it was so unexpected. It's like we never thought that would happen. It was a very safe neighborhood and we didn't really feel like anything was off. And then, it was really bad. I went into the office then through the balcony. I realized then, everything was gone. And also my hard drives were gone. And that's where the real damage was. The laptops, we had the data backed up, but the hard drives, I kept them in the same room, which was a big fat mistake, which I don't recommend you to do. If you work online, have your stuff backed up, but also have it in a different location. You don't want to have, the main data and the backup in the same location, because what happens if you fall victim to home invasion? It's not going to end very well, unless of course you have a massive safe and that's where you have it. That would be a different story because it would take them a long time, to carry out that safe or to open it up, if they're professional thieves, then maybe they can make it work, but it would still be better. The most loss I had actually incurred from the data loss because I wasn't able to recover the data. And back then, I was just doing internet marketing for a couple of years. I was pretty good at it, but I didn't really pay too much attention to the data and how secure it was. And then I lost access to so many accounts because the accounts we created back then, you didn't really have two-factor authentication or anything like that. Right now you use like Google Authenticator or Alfie app, or SMS login. I mean, 8-9 years ago, I didn't really have that. So we lost a lot there. We lost a lot of accounts that we couldn't manage anymore, that we couldn't build up anymore. I lost YouTube accounts, I lost Google accounts, CPA accounts, like so much was lost. It was such a massive, massive loss. So a really, really bad experience. We couldn't really figure out how they broke in because, everything was locked. The balcony doors, they were always locked. The windows were closed. The back door was also locked. Of course, the house door, the gate door. I mean, everything was locked. There weren't really any issues, So it was really weird. We were asking us, how could they possibly come into our home exactly the time we were not in? Well, the answer to the question is because they have been observing us for a very long time. That didn't happen by accident. That is organized crime. If anything like this happens, it is organized crime, and it happens for a reason. This was a well thought out plan, and it just happened. And they've been planning this for weeks, not just a day or two. No, they knew exactly when we were going out because we had a routine, and they picked up on that, and they knew exactly when we were out, and they just broke in. Then we spoke to the landlady, and we asked her, how is that possible? Because upstairs then, where the pool is, we found a second pair of keys there, which I personally have never seen. So we were asking her, are those the keys that the housekeeper used? Because, possibly. I mean, usually he came when we were at home because we didn't really like that anybody comes to our place when we're not there. We don't really like that. We didn't really like that back then. And it was very clear that they came in through the pool because, there was water all over the place, there was earth, there were footsteps, and then the footsteps were also all over the house, especially, at the office. And, we were very glad that, we came home exactly when they broke in. They were waiting for us to go, and then they waited a little bit to make sure we don't come back, because sometimes you forget something and you come back in like 10-15 minutes, and that would have been really, really bad because they would have left with nothing. We knew that they weren't in the house for very long because they just didn't get much. They only got the laptops and the hard drive, but there were a couple of other things they could have gotten, and they did not manage to go down to the ground floor. They didn't manage to do that, right? But then at the pool, there was dirt, and then we remembered like the top door, that door was not lockable. We remember that, but we never thought it would be an issue because it didn't seem realistic that anybody could break in, because our house was a little bit higher than the neighbor's house too, but there was an option to get there, but you need to be sophisticated for sure, but they were sophisticated. So it did happen. Didn't have any proof, but everything was gone, the laptops, the data. And then we confronted them, and then we called the police. We reported it, but you know how good the police works in favor of a foreigner in Vietnam. The point here is that it was just a really odd experience overall. The housekeeper didn't say that he gave the keys to anybody, nothing like that. And then, the police also didn't do anything, and then the girl that I was with back then, she said, well, if he would have been younger, if the housekeeper would have been younger, the police would have beaten him up pretty bad. But since he was already an older guy, like 60, 65, they didn't want to do any harm to him, any physical harm to him, right? We moved out of the house, we got the deposit back, we got the remaining rent back. So that was good, but nobody ever compensated us for the loss we incurred, that I incurred from the devices I lost, from the data I lost. That was never recoverable, and it was a really bad experience that I learned from, because right now the data I have it backed up 3 times. I have it backed up in different locations, and that's how you need to do it. It is very saddening that it took such a big financial loss for me to learn this experience, because I lost well over $50,000 there. Now the question is, what is your lesson here? How can you learn from this experience and not make the same mistake that I made? Well, first of all, if you live in a developing country, you want to be careful renting a home. Renting a house, because renting a house is difficult, unless it's in a gated compound. The house that we had was not in a gated compound, that is a problem. But even if it was in a gated compound, there's still some risk. You're not invincible just because it is gated. It reduces the risk a little bit, but nothing is ever guaranteed. Remember that. You definitely want to be careful, with who you trust. The housekeeper, doesn't matter if your landlady, your landlord recommends somebody, you gotta be careful, because you don't know these people. You don't speak the language, you don't know them, you don't have any experience, and a lot of things can go wrong. A lot of things can go against you. And also, if you hire a maid, be careful. Only have her there, wherever she is at. Make sure you watch her, especially if you have valuables in the room. Watch her carefully. Or, before she comes, make sure you have things hidden. If you have anything valuable, like a watch or phone, have these things on you. Put these things at some place, where you can see him while she's there. You gotta be careful and don't trust anybody, especially if the difference between rich and poor is as big as it is in developing countries. What was the worst thing that ever happened to you living in a developing country? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, visas, crypto advice, and business advice several times a week right now. I highly recommend that you grab a free copy of my ebook Nomad Elite, the Insider's Guide to Retaining a Life of Freedom. All you need to do is click on the link below the video. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.